It can be really hard sometimes to know where to start quilting your quilt top. And one of the best ways to go about doing that is to find a middlemost area and quilt that area first. What I mean by that is if we take a quilt like this, this quilt has diagonal rows of stars with sashing in between, and it's a relatively large throw quilt. And so what I did is I simply decided to quilt down the first or middlemost diagonal row, which was this row right here. And then I quilted the sashing, and then this row, and then the sashing, and then this row, and then the sashing in the corner. And when I go back to quilting it, I will quilt this row and continue quilting each row until I'm finished. That being said, what do I quilt first in that row, and where do I start in that row? That's where I then start at one edge and work my way down. And I always start at the same edge and work my way down. The main reason I don't start at one edge and work my way down and then start at this edge and work my way the opposite direction is that I'm going to pull things in opposite directions purposefully when I don't have to. So I always start at one end, finish at the other, start at one end, finish at the other. Where do I start quilting? Because I'm quilting uniquely to the pattern. I'm quilting a very simple floral design here in the center, wavy lines here in the star tips, a stipple in the background, a swirl here in the sashing, and a repeat of the flower from the center here in the cornerstones. So what gets quilted first? The smallest area gets quilted first. What's the smallest area on most of these? Well, it's pretty much the sashing areas and maybe the center, or maybe the star tips, I'm not sure. But I know the biggest area is the background, so I'm going to leave that for last. I leave the biggest area for last because every time I quilt in one area, it pulls that a little bit and makes it tighter and leaves the areas that are unquilted full. If that area is really small, then it's hard to work out that fullness. If that area is big, then it's easy to work out that fullness. So when I quilted this first row, I came in and I quilted the centers of each of these first. Then I quilted the star tips and the sashing, the star tips and the sashing, star tips, sashing, and so on. And then I quilted the backgrounds. That means I'm changing my quilt or my thread color. I'm using black thread sometimes, red thread sometimes, and the tan thread sometimes. It's worth it to me to do that. I like the quilting to basically go away into the surface of the quilt. I want to have enough quilting to hold everything together really well, to possibly affect depth, push the background back, allow the star tips to come forward. But I don't want the quilting to be the thing. I don't want them to go, oh, look at that quilting. What I want them to say is, oh, look at all those fabulous fabrics and all those funky, weird squares or stars and that really cool sashing. I want them to see that. So that's why I quilted this particular quilt in this particular way. But I always start in a centermost row, and I always quilt the smallest areas of that row first, leaving the largest areas of that row to quilt last. So that's how you go about deciding where do I start quilting this quilt.